We finally got an apology. The day of reckoning was coming. You could feel it. I stand for women's sports today, tomorrow, and the next day.
They know what the right thing is. They're just terrified to do it. That's why I call them cowards.
This would never have come about had Riley Gaines not had to stand up. Everybody is included. Nobody is excluded. Let's go play with the men. You know, when everybody was afraid, when everybody wouldn't touch it, and everybody from 19 to 22, 2019 to 22 was like, oh, we don't want to talk. Pat Forty, whose daughter swam against dudes, and Pat Forty, famous rider, was too chick to say anything about it, to write anything about it, but not OutKick. Not OutKick here, not Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines, Paula Scanlon, and a bunch of other people stood up. That's right. They stood up, and famous people, even little girls with the twisties. Simone Biles came at him personally for doing what? Standing up for women in sports. The day of reckoning was coming. You could feel it. You could feel it when Donald Trump got elected. The world was coming back to common sense. Title IX was being demolished by Joe Biden because he wanted dudes participating against girls. I have no idea why, other than he was a stone idiot. But anyway, long story short, there was OutKick at the forefront. There was Riley Gaines leading the charge, and guess what happened yesterday? We finally got an apology. Yesterday was a massive, massive, massive win for women's sports, and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to applaud. Finally, women get a win in women's sports. Finally, real women like Riley Gaines, Paula Scanlon get a win and apology for having to compete against dudes. Now, we got idiots all over the place on ESPN. The women of ESPN are so shady. They're actually, one of them married with 2 kids with Screw, and Greg Doyle married with 2 kids. How shady and dumb is that? That tells you the level of the women of ESPN. I'm sure they're rolling in their little tampons right now. I can't believe it. Oh, my God, a boy cannot compete against a girl, and they're apologizing. They won't even address it because they suck. Yes, I'm rambling, but I'm excited. I am. You know my backstory. Stepdaughter, stud softball player at Harvard, wife, All-American, legendary coach in softball. I stand for women's sports today, tomorrow, and the next day. Danny Z of OutKick broke the story that the University of Pennsylvania is apologizing for how they handled the entire Lia Thomas dude swimming against women's affair. This would never have come about had Riley Gaines not had to stand up against the angry transgenders, the angry lesbian, the angry blue-haired liberals, the angry mob that is the liberal, ridiculous, asinine world. Common sense is back. Announcement. The Department of Education announced that the University of Pennsylvania has agreed to resolve Title IX violations related to allowing transgender swimmer Lia Thomas to compete on the women's team in the 2021-2022 season. Remember, from 19 to basically 23, you weren't allowed to say anything. I told a woman I wouldn't swim in a pool with her, and that's debasing her. People were fucking nuts. Now we're not. That's right. Angry Dan is back. I like Angry Dan with a smile on my face. As part of the resolution deal, University of Penn will adopt definitions for male and female consistent with biological sex. Duh. Anyway, restore stolen records and titles to female athletes and issue personal apologies to each impacted female swimmer. One of those swimmers is Paula Scanlon, a teammate of Thomas, who had previously expressed the emotional distress she suffered from being forced to change with a biological male in the women's locker room for an entire season. I mean, think of how stupid this is. I mean, how stupid. History, Paula Scanlon was told, will be on Penn's side. Paula Scanlon was told very clearly by the administrators, you will be on the wrong side of history. Really, dumbasses? It's never the wrong side of history when it's science. A dude with a thang should not be swimming against women. Period. Hey, you want to go all in? You want to get that thing chopped off? Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, I'm kidding. Here's Paula Scanlon.
Wow, that's the first thing I have to say about this. How many years of progress this is just fixing. There's so many women I'm looking at in this room that have fought so hard for so many years on this issue, and I'm grateful to be alongside many of you today. But more than anything, I am grateful for this administration for taking this so seriously. I have quite literally gotten exactly what I voted for, and so I can't start before I address. I'm just going to share very briefly. I was a swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania. I know many of you have told this story, but we need to talk about why Penn is apologizing and why they were wrong. And I'm going to share what they did to me, and not just me, my teammates, the other girls competing against us. Riley Gaines, right here, who had to deal with this firsthand as well. The University of Pennsylvania told my teammates and I that we had to undress in a locker room with a 6'4" tall male athlete 18 times per week. In addition, he broke every record in every event that he swam, went on and won an NCAA championship title, and also every single time Thomas competed on behalf of the University of Pennsylvania, a girl on the team was asked to stay home. Upon the situation unfolding, many of us were unhappy with the situation, and so people tried to speak out about it. They sent in administrators, and they sat us down and they told us a few things. They said, first, don't speak out against this because you will be on the wrong side of history. They said you will be tainted by this. You will never be able to find a job. They told us that if we did not want this man in our locker room, that it was equivalent to not wanting to undress to someone based on their race in the 1960s.
There you go. There you go. Now you're apologizing. Man, we had to listen to so much stupid stuff. We had to listen to ESPN celebrate a dude swimming against women during Women's History Month. I mean, the level of crazy. In April, the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, thank God for Donald Trump, ruled that the University of Pennsylvania violated Title IX by allowing Thomas to compete on the women's team. Thomas is a fully erect dude. Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Craig Traynor, said at the time that Penn could face financial consequences if they didn't comply. While Penn is a private school, it did receive about $1 billion in federal funds in 2024, according to WHYY. There you go. Here is Secretary McMahon and the comment. Linda McMahon, Common Sense won today. Really? A major victory for women and girls nationwide. Penn has agreed to apologize and comply with Title IX. Thanks to Donald Trump's leadership and dedication to protecting women's sports at the university and for future generations. Think about the stupid shit we had to listen to. Think about there's still some out there. But my God, just have a little common sense. Nobody is trying to hurt trans people. They're trying to protect women. But I get it. The people that lied to us about what? Russian collusion. Hillary's laptop. The laptop for hell with Hunter Biden, the border, the economy, inflation, hell, grilling a cheeseburger. The people that lied to us about all of this are telling us this is bad. Memo, if the people that lied to us about all of those things think it's a bad thing, then you know it's a good thing. My God. Here's Linda McMahon. She also released the final, this statement. Today's resolution agreement with Penn is yet another example of the Trump effect in action. Winning never gets old, by the way. Thanks to the leadership of President Trump, Penn has agreed both to apologize for its past Title IX violations and to ensure that women's sports are protected at the university for future generations of female athletes. Bingo! Today's a great victory for women and girls, not only at the University of Pennsylvania, but all across our nation. The department commends UPenn for rectifying its past harms against women and girls. And we continue to fight relentlessly to restore Title IX's proper application and enforce it to the fullest extent of the law. Good for Linda McMahon. Of course, the usual suspects, they ain't happy. The unbiased worldwide leader couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. They couldn't say. Here's what they put out. The University of Pennsylvania has agreed to ban transgender women from its women's sports teams to resolve a federal civil rights case. No, they resolved to ban men from participating against women. I don't know why it hurts ESPN so bad. I do. I've told you why. Because the guys in Building 4, the old white guys who hired a couple women, a couple African American, okay, they cannot be perceived as anything other than woke. Why? Because that's all they hire. And they are protecting their 401ks. Think about what happened to one of the most powerful men at ESPN, Norby Williamson. Norby Williamson was going along swimmingly, pun intended. Then one of their high-profile employees, Pat McAfee, went at him for being a rat. Norby Williamson is now working for FanDuel after like 40 years of building ESPN. Burke Magnus, Connor Shell, Dave Roberts, they all saw this. Just toe the line. Go along with these idiots. Go along with these morons. Go along with this woke, silly agenda. This is true, what I'm telling you. I'm absolutely telling you the truth. This is exactly how it goes. Go along until we retire, and then they can do whatever they want. But we got to keep our 401k. We can't have a scandal. I can't handle a scandal. These little white dudes are so afraid. And Dave Roberts, being African-American, he's a little bit exempt. This is the way ESPN works. Go to Building 4 and ask anybody. They'll tell you. Ask Sage Steele. She'll tell you. Ask anybody that doesn't want to go on record. This phone is full from ESPN folk, whether they're producers of SportsCenter, whether they're producers of games, on-air talent, you name it. It's all in here. I know what's happening. So they can't do it. They cannot do it because the bosses won't let themselves be put in harm's way. The inmates are running the asylum. Take that however you want. I don't care. That's a saying. If you're going to get mad at it, get mad at it. I know we get mad at it in sports, get mad at it, but that's an old saying. It's like Confucius. But anyway, what a monster win for women. And about damn time. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's simple. If you are a dude transitioning to a woman, go compete with the men. If you are a woman transitioning to a man, go compete with the men. Simple. Simple. Everybody gets to play. Everybody is included. Nobody is excluded. Let's go play with the men. Leave women's sports alone. They fought way, way, way too damn hard. And we'll have Riley Gaines coming up here at the top of the hour, and I can't wait. I know you guys are digging this show. The numbers say it, so why don't you go on over to youtube.com/@OutKick/video. Like, comment, and subscribe on all the great content. Why wouldn't you? It's fantastic, whether it's me, whether it's Riley, who has a show on here. Tyrus has a show on here. Hot Mike has a show on here. Of course, Clay has a show on here. I'm going to be on Ricky right after our show. It's glorious. Anyway, all right. And yesterday, for those of you that didn't notice, University of Penn issued an apology to Paula Scanlon and others that had to participate against Riley Gaines and others because, well, Lia Thomas, the dude, had to compete against Riley Gaines and others. I'm saying it wrong. Before we get into all of it, it feels like a watershed moment of common sense, Riley. Do you anticipate the NCAA doing the same thing that University of Penn did, issue an apology? Do you anticipate anything from the NCAA?
You know, well, first, let me just say I'm so, of course, just over the moon with the news that we heard from Secretary McMahon yesterday. This is something that we have been, and I say we, I don't just mean me and female swimmers. I mean people like you, Dan. Like, we have been asking for this, really pleading, demanding that those accountable or those responsible take some form of accountability. And so that's what we're seeing here. Granted, it doesn't, of course, necessarily undo the harm and the abuse that the mistreatment that they cause to women. But of course, it is the first step of taking, again, that responsibility, accountability, and doing it transparently, especially as it pertains to these apologies. All of that to say, I would not have imagined that University of Pennsylvania, again, an Ivy League private institution, would have done this. But of course, federal funds were being withheld here. And when you have upwards of nearly $200 million on the line, I think that tends to make people fall in line. So that's, I think, ultimately what we need to see with the NCAA. Granted, I believe this is an institution with much, much deeper pockets. So we need to see some form of retribution. And that's what myself, and I think there are 19 other plaintiffs on this lawsuit, that's what we're hoping to accomplish with the NCAA. One of the things that we have been suing for, this lawsuit's been ongoing for well over a year now at this point. And some of the things we're asking for, of course, in this lawsuit are restoration of records, titles, honors, because while University of Pennsylvania will have to rescind his records from their accounts and their record boards, the NCAA, as I understand it, does not have to. So we will see what the NCAA does. Again, one of the things we're suing for, I can't imagine. I approach this conversation pretty cynically, and I hate to say that, but these leaders, if you will, have remained spineless and weak-kneed and morally bankrupt and just total cowards over the past 3 years. So it's hard to imagine a world where they do the right thing for the right reason, which again is sad to even say that.
You know, one of the things, Riley, that I want to get into is the NCAA is not going to, or maybe they are, your lawsuit's up, but this was coming from the University of Penn, from Donald Trump. This was coming with the withholding of federal funds, as you suggested. Do you think others will look at this and say, you know what, we're going to make damn sure. Now, the Riley Gaines Act was passed in Georgia, and I'd like you to talk about that. But do you think other schools will make it very clear? Because Yale had the opposite. Yale had a girl transitioning as a boy playing on their softball team. Do you think other schools will say, all right, we're going to make clear definitions based on what happened at Penn?
That's the intention, I think, with any of these cultural issues that have really plagued this country the past few years. Historically, what has been the most effective and ultimately making change is making an example out of someone. And that's what the Trump administration has now done with the University of Pennsylvania. That's what they're doing with the state of California and the state of Maine, for example. They're saying, look, if you continue to violate the law, we will withhold federal funds. You don't get to defiantly ignore what federal law says and then reap the benefits of following federal law. So that's the intention. Again, hopefully it sets the precedent, not just for, again, colleges, but for every level of sport. Of course, we have seen this gone on, in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, much more drastically. We've seen this even at the Olympic level. Obviously, the Olympics are in the United States in 2028. We have seen fantastic leadership from people like Secretary Rubio, who has done fantastic work as it pertains to the Olympics and the whole visa passport thing, saying, look, we in the United States, when the Olympics are on U.S. soil, we will not accept fraudulent passports, which again is good news because birth certificates and passports can be made fraudulent in 44 states in the U.S. and, of course, all across the world. So hopefully this will set the precedent for other institutions at every single level to follow. It's nothing crazy that we're asking for here. Again, Dan, we are asking them to follow the law. That is it. Title IX, it's very, very clear, especially as it pertains to any institution that receives federal funds. You cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. And that's what people like Yale, that's what institutions like, of course, UPenn, that's what the NCAA, who does receive federal funds, by the way, that's what all of these institutions are doing. So hopefully this is the example that is needed for those leaders to do the right thing, because truthfully, I believe they want to. I think they know what the right thing is. And again, I say this based on conversations I've had in private with people like Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA. They know what the right thing is. They're just terrified to do it. That's why I call them cowards. They've been able to, the past few years, really sit on their hands and kind of point the finger at someone else. Well, we're just following what they're doing, or we're just following what they're saying for us to do. So hopefully now this gives them a way to be able to do the right thing, even if it means they don't have to necessarily take accountability for it.
The Riley Gaines Act, I was reading it this morning, and congratulations, by the way, in Georgia. But when you read it, you're like, do we really need this? The answer is yes, right? You got to be looking at this going, oh, okay, thank you, but how absurd is it that we have to restrict participation in women's sports to biological females? Really? Not let dudes in women's spaces? Really? Right? I mean, it's absurd.
It was absurd 3 years ago, and of course, it's just as absurd now. It's now been passed in 28 states, which is fantastic news, considering, again, just 3 years ago, only one state had some sort of legislation like this because, Dan, to your point, they never knew they needed it. They never knew they would have to define these words in law. They would have to say only women play in women's sports, only women go in women's bathrooms. It was never something that was necessary, or so we thought. For the nearly 250 years we've been established as a country, and I mean, for far longer than that, since the beginning of time, people have recognized the inherent, really beautiful differences between men and women, and of course, until I would say it really blew up over the past 5-6 years or so. So nonetheless, crazy to be able to have to lend my name to something that I truly believe is so necessary and so urgent for that matter. But it's a huge win. And then, look, I really believe this was the sleeper issue of the election, not just the presidential race, but look at even key Senate races. People like Bernie Moreno in Ohio, people like Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, right? I really believe that all of these people won, not necessarily because of their credibility or their voting record, but more so, which these are fantastic people, by the way, who are doing fantastic things in Washington, D.C. I more so believe these people won because their opponents were so radical and so crazy and have continued to double down on the fact that men can become women, men can get pregnant, tampons belong in boys' bathrooms, whatever the nonsensical issue of the day is. Democrats have been doubling down, which for the life of me, even on border security, for the life of me, I cannot understand why they have taken the 20% side of all of these 80-20 issues, which I really believe it's 90-10. I cannot for the life of me understand why they're doing it. It is certainly political suicide as we continue to see President Trump's approval rating surge. And the Democrats, I think it's 19% was their favorability rating, the most recent poll. I mean, really, the only person who may have a lower approval rating than 19% is Putin. And that's saying something. So these Democrats, man, if they don't learn, 2026, I think we're going to see another red wave.
You know, I said this, Democrats, just get candidates that are likable, that have common sense, and policies that we can understand and get behind. We can't understand. No adult male. I always say no adult male with the great American penis can understand men being in a women's locker room. They cannot understand that. I'm not saying some of these fake men can't. I'm not saying but no American male
especially
can understand and get, I
said, especially if you're a father, if you have your own children, especially a daughter, no dad. I think of my dad, Dan, I know, of course, you, like no father would be okay with a man in his daughter's locker room. Or at least no good father.
It just it just doesn't make any sense. Hey, we did make the over-under because it's coming, Riley. The Simone Biles, I'm a Victim tour is coming. Say whatever you'd like. It's coming. It's going to either come on Oprah, The View, Robin Roberts. That attack was absolutely absurd. She's smart for going away for a while, but you and I both know she's going to turn this into her being victimized, Riley.
Yeah, it's wild to me to see how venomously she came out on this issue. Again, in the year 2025, like had she approached this conversation in the same manner 5 years ago, I think the response from the public would have been a little different. But to do this now, where we have so many examples of women losing out, of women being hurt, of women being exploited in locker rooms, and for her to say this, and with the personal attacks in the way that she did, which did not hurt my feelings at all. By the way, I'm very secure with myself. I'm very happily married. Doesn't hurt my feelings for her to say the things that she said about me personally, but I just can't understand it. And so, of course, again, the public response was wow, I don't even know if I was expecting that. And I've been involved in this issue for 3 years. I mean, I almost feel bad for her. She got dragged on social media, on every single social media platform by every single demographic, right? TikTok, Instagram, she had to turn her comments off. Of course, she deactivated her X account, which I just saw actually this morning, that she has now reactivated the X account, which I think that is probably right on pace with what you're talking about, Dan. She has a Netflix docuseries, I believe, coming out. So I think this begins and I even had, truthfully, some of her Team USA teammates reach out and say that she came out on this issue because she thought it would put her back in the public eye. And that would ultimately be good for this Netflix documentary. So again, I think that backfired on her majorly. But then she came out and in her apology, Dan, she says, look, I wasn't advocating for men and women's sports. I don't think that's fair. So where is her celebrating what Secretary McMahon did yesterday? Huh? Because I'll be waiting for that. If she doesn't think men should be in women's sports, and we agree there, I'm waiting for her to sing the praises of Secretary McMahon and to condemn University of Pennsylvania and every institution that has allowed for this, again, mistreatment and abuse of women that we saw the whole nation watch, the whole world watched on the sidelines as they perpetrated. So I'll be waiting for those comments, Dan.
I think you're going to be waiting a while.
I think so too.
It's like everything is so scripted. Like it's, and this is, I'm going to go back to something. This is why I believe that people can have a cause, and sometimes, rarely actually, does that cause get picked up. Rarely. Very rarely does the cause get picked up like what you were able to do. But what Simone Biles and others have missed here is what you just said. One, you are very secure. Two, you're on the right side of this, period. And three, you handle yourself authentically. You don't handle yourself only when the camera is on. You don't handle yourself for an advertiser. My guess is this is probably, I'm not going to cost you more than it's gained you, because I know you were going to be a dentist. But Riley, that's why I say congratulations to you, because yes, there are a ton of causes, but they get picked up because people see the goodness in the person leading the charge, and they saw it in you. Simple.
Well, I do think there's a level I do agree people appreciate authenticity. And again, I think that's why people like Donald Trump so much. There is no facade. There is no face that he puts on or personality that he puts on, no matter who he's with. It could be with a random person he meets off the street, or it could be with, in front of NATO. It doesn't matter. Like, Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and people, I think especially young people, really, really admire that. And in contrast, of course, Kamala Harris, people saw her as a manufactured candidate running a manufactured campaign. So there is certainly value in being authentic in who you are. And that's me. Look, I run all my own socials. I do all my own, I'm just me. I'm a flower farmer. That's what me and my husband do here. We live on a flower farm. I've got all my animals, of course, now expecting our daughter. This, of course, is my passion. It's what I feel so strongly, so fiercely about. But at the end of the day, I go home, I lay down in my bed, and I don't have to talk about this stuff. It's on to the next thing, So I do agree. I think people appreciate authenticity, and they can recognize when someone isn't genuine, or they're not doing things for the right reason. And granted, that doesn't stop the people who, will call you a grifter or whatever it is, or people like Keith Olbermann. Dan, this guy, oh my gosh, it's a fun game for me at this point, corresponding with Keith Olbermann on Twitter. I was waiting yesterday for him to say something, to which, of course, he did. He says, congratulations, Riley. You go from fifth place to fifth place, as, of course, I tied with Will Thomas at that national championships. But it's hilarious to me because he's making the exact point that I want him to make. It's it goes right over his head. It's Keith, it doesn't matter if you're fifth, first in the nation, or dead last. If you're the worst swimmer, the worst female swimmer in the country, and you're beat by a man, it doesn't matter. So he makes the point I'm trying to make perfectly. Still just as senile as I it's a fun game for me at this point.
I I do want to, I'm going to get into the Olympics here in a second. You'd mentioned the Olympics, but let's get this on record. Do you believe that this change would have been made if Donald Trump and McMahon hadn't said we're withholding money?
No, I don't. I don't think University of Pennsylvania would have been willing to right their wrongs. Again, that's not to say that I don't believe they would have known it to be wrong, but this was a hill I believe they would have been willing to die on, because that's what we've seen across the board. I don't think University of Pennsylvania would have been the exception here. But again, when you're withholding $175 million, which that I think brings up a different conversation. Why in the world are taxpayer funds going to private institutions at all?
No.
This is a university that has billions and billions and billions of dollars of endowments. Whether they're following the law or not, I don't want to pay University of Pennsylvania with my taxpayer dollars any amount of money. So let this be a clarion call to Congress or whoever needs to hear it. Let's stop funding private institutions, again, especially these liberal hotbeds like University of Pennsylvania, like Brown, like Yale. Let's stop funding them with taxpayer money. That doesn't even make sense to me to begin with. But nonetheless, when you're holding that over their head, again, $175 million, it's crazy how quickly people will come to their senses. And again, I think that's what's been astonishing to me and why the Democrats have not. But even as it, like these surgeries that are being performed by these hospitals, these healthcare providers, really unregulated butchery providers who are administering these hormones or again, these chemical surgical castrations to minors. Once you begin to enact these state laws that would penalize these hospitals for doing this, of course, they very quickly fall in line. So it's a business, just like anything. This issue, whatever issue it is, COVID, for example, it is follow the money. And that's what University of Pennsylvania is doing here.
There's two things pretty funny about this, and it wasn't funny at the time. Paula Scanlon being told by the University of Pennsylvania she'll be on the wrong side of history for complaining about this. And the other is celebrating on ESPN Women's History Month with a big elaborate thing on Lia Thomas. I assume we won't hear anything. We saw yesterday ESPN couldn't say male. They had to say transgender woman. But I assume both of these will, well, UPenn has already done their thing, so that's good. ESPN's not doing shit, Riley. You know that. I know that. That ain't changing, right?
ESPN is so insufferable that it's painful. It really is. Like, I mean, across the board now charging what, like they're wanting to implement a $30 charge for people to subscribe and watch per month. Like there's so much about ESPN that I think is a problem with their structure, of course, with how they approach these conversations. ESPN has, for the most part, remained outside of, again, the beginning of this. You look back at 2021, 2022, of course, they took the side of the man. They celebrated him for Women's History Month. It was this huge piece put together saying how brave he was, how resilient he was, how he has conquered these barriers to achieve the seemingly impossible and win a national title in the women's division. Like totally took his side initially. I think they faced, of course, a lot of backlash for this, even back in 2022 or 2023. But to now, I think in these past 2 or so years, they've remained relatively quiet on this issue. But then yesterday, they post, and their headline is, University of Pennsylvania bans trans women from sports. First of all, that's the headline that you're going to draw. No mention of the women who will receive their rightful national championship. People like Emma Wyatt. You're not going to mention her at all in this piece. That is literally crazy. This is a sports, network. These are sports journalists. These are sports analysts. Like, these people, if anyone would understand what we're dealing with here, you would imagine that it's the people working at ESPN. But of course, remember, they're owned by Disney. And I think that ties a lot of them up. They have a whole lot of what I would describe as activists, right? Like, these people aren't journalists. People like Jamel Hill, people like, of course, Keith Olbermann was there. Like, these people are activists is the best word for them. And then you have, on the other hand, amazing people like Sage Steele, like Sam Ponder, like David Pollock, who have been pushed out because of their views, whether it's their Christian views, whether it's their conservative takes on COVID, on this issue. So I so appreciate those voices, how they have continued to champion the rights of women, fair and equal opportunities for both sexes. But ESPN as a whole is insufferable. You see that every day with the WNBA. I've never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA, which of course the ESPN promotes and touts. So crazy stuff.
Why do you think, is it still that toxic? Why do you think prominent women athletes, like a Caitlin Clark mentioning the WNBA, Angel Reese, whether you like her or not, she does have a voice. Why do you think, high-powered or I guess big platformed women in sports haven't come out to support you, haven't come out to say that dudes shouldn't be in sports? You think it's going to take a guy playing and dominating the WNBA to get that going?
I do. I really do. I think they're terrified to answer pretty frankly. Although I will say, hopefully, the response that Simone Biles received, again, I hate to celebrate this as a good thing, because you really do hate to see any female athlete, especially at her caliber, receiving the backlash that she did. Granted, I believe she did it to herself, right? But I don't necessarily look at that as some sort of victory, but it certainly represents the societal cultural shift. So hopefully some of these prominent figures realize, like, okay, I do have the opinion of the majority of the masses here, and thinking that it's crazy for men to play in women's sports. But yeah, you're right. Overall, we have seen just a lack of people who are willing to say the thing being that men should not play in women's sports. Again, it is like the least controversial take on the entire planet. Yet for some reason, those in these circles are still scared to say it. So I would love to see people like Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, someone who has been awesome, which I think this is no surprise, is Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's teammate, the sole defender of Caitlin Clark, has just been so fantastic. She has reached out to me personally, and she's like, look, you keep going. What you're doing is incredible. She's awesome. She did that, a long time ago at this point. And so I'm so glad she's getting kind of the praise and the notoriety that she is, because she's just, she's a force. And I respect that. I admire that so much. So hopefully we see more, but you have, again, on the alternative, people like Megan Rapinoe, people like Alex Morgan, people like Billie Jean King, I think really the most ironic, who's really who we have to thank for Title IX, like truthfully, who has now come out. She's just endorsed the Democratic nominee for governor in New Jersey, who has voted twice to allow men and women's sports. Like, Billie Jean King is on the total other side of this issue. So I think we continue to put these people on blast, let them know, let the general public know what they're doing, what their voting records are, and how they are undermining, I think, especially as it pertains to the female athletes, everything that they claim to fight for.
Last thing, I actually remember where I was. This was way before your dad was probably born, watching Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. I remember my dad and I were watching it in the Astrodome. Anyway, speaking, you made it earlier about the Olympics, that boxer, Man Khalif, everybody was so quick, like ESPN, going back to them, and all the Jamel Hills of the world, they were so quick to tell all of us, that we're on the wrong side. Like, we're going to be, whatever, is going to be owed an apology. Next thing you know, the Olympics is making that person give back medals. But that person is quoting Winston Churchill now. Honest to God, will we ever see this again in the Olympics? Do you think we'll ever see, not ever, but do you think in the upcoming Olympics we'll see anything like we did with that Khalif guy? We
shall see. Again, hopefully not in the U.S., hopefully in 2028, there are accurate provisions put in place to prevent this from happening to any woman in any sport. But again, it's hard to tell. The IOC as a whole has, of course, not been strong on this issue. They just had their election, if you will, for IOC president. And there was one guy, Seb Coe, who would have been fantastic and who would have handled this issue moving forward, just like he's done with World Athletics, the international governing body of track and field. He's handled it fantastic there. He would have been an awesome candidate, an awesome president of the IOC, but unfortunately, that is not who they voted in. It is now a woman who, again, has just remained poorly on this issue. So I think with lack of guidance and again, just the unwillingness to say the thing, I don't think the IOC has, at this point, been strong enough to say that they will prevent this from moving forward. Again, they just want to relinquish any sort of responsibility. They want each specific sport to make their own rules. Like, you guys just make your rules and we'll just, we're paid these really fancy, nice salaries to make sure that every athlete is protected, that safety is ensured, but you do it, we'll still collect the salaries. And then we don't have to be the center of the conversation or anyone taking the heat. That goes to you guys. So we'll see. I hate to say it. I don't approach this issue anymore with giving people the benefit of the doubt, because we have continued to be failed by our leaders, except for people like Donald Trump over these past few years. So we are so grateful for him. We are so grateful for Secretary McMahon, so grateful for Attorney General Bondi. Of course, the Department of Justice has gotten involved on these issues pertaining to men and women's sports. So praise God. Truthfully, I don't say that lightly. I really do praise God. I pray every single day, just a prayer of gratitude for the results that we saw on November 5th, and hopefully the results that we as Americans will continue seeing. I mean, we're only 150-ish days in at this point. There's a lot of presidency left, meaning there's a lot more times to keep having these wins, Dan, which I'm excited about.
What's amazing about the Olympics is after the East German scandal, steroid scandal in the 70s, the Olympics were known as the toughest drug testing, the toughest gender, everything was like, man, in fact, if you watch old TV shows, they reference how, well, what do you think? You're the Olympics in terms of testing people. I mean, it is amazing how far that we have fallen over some bullshit issue that is this, like you said, it's the least controversial issue ever. Riley, I kept you too long, but I always love talking to you. Congrats on the baby, man. Tell your husband, Lee and I said hello. You're awesome. Thank you.
I sure will. And tell Lee we say hi too. She's your better half for sure.
We will. Oh, stop it. You had to get a shot in, didn't you? Everybody has to do that. I try to tell people she got so damn lucky. Or maybe not. Maybe I got lucky. I don't know. But thank you.
No, you guys are the best. Tell her we say hi.
We will. Thank you.